We often imagine that our lives are transformed by grand, sweeping events, winning a prestigious prize, moving to a new city, or experiencing a dramatic turning point. These moments are easy to spot, and they often become the stories we tell about ourselves. But if we look closer, we realize that the most profound changes often happen in the quiet, almost invisible moments, like the small hinges that swing open the largest doors. These are the moments that rarely make headlines, but they quietly shape the course of our lives. It's in the tiny choices we make every day. What we say to someone in passing, the words we write in a private journal, the thoughts we allow to linger in our minds. What we do when no one is watching, the kindness we offer without expecting anything in return, the effort we put into our work, even when it goes unseen. These are the building blocks of our character. The world loves to celebrate the loudest accomplishments, the trophies, the applause, the moments of public recognition, but real growth, the kind that lasts, happens in the quiet spaces, in the pauses between the noise when we are alone with our thoughts and our choices. Imagine a winding path through a dense forest. Each small bend or turn might seem insignificant at the time, just another step along the way. But as you keep walking, those tiny shifts in direction add up, and before you know it, you find yourself in a place you never expected to be, somewhere entirely new, shaped by the sum of all those little choices. A single decision to help someone, to offer a smile, or to listen with patience can ripple outward, changing not just your day but the course of your life. Or perhaps a choice to hide a truth, to close a door quietly behind you, can set you on a path you never intended to walk. Each decision, no matter how small, can become a turning point, a crossroads that leads us somewhere unexpected. And the beauty of life is that we always have the power to change direction, to choose a new path, one small step at a time, guided by our values and hopes. This is a story about one of those small hinges, a boy sitting quietly in a classroom, faced with a decision that seemed minor in the moment, but would echo through the rest of his life. It's about how a single moment, a fleeting choice, can shape who we become and how we remember ourselves years later. Sometimes the quietest truths, the ones we discover in solitude or in the pages of a book, are the most powerful, guiding us when the world is silent. This story reminds us, it's never too late to find our way back, to make a new choice and to begin again, one honest step at a time, no matter how small. There once was a boy named Ilyas, kind-hearted and gentle. He comforted classmates, shared his snacks, and listened with care. Ilyas loved learning, especially about stars and the world's mysteries. But he carried a secret fear, disappointing those he loved. Praise from his teacher, Mrs. Gable, felt like sunshine. The thought of her disappointment, a cold cloud. This fear made him work hard. But sometimes, especially in mathematics, he struggled. He worried that mistakes would make him unworthy of love and pride. Ilyas kept this fear hidden, always smiling, always trying his best. He didn't realize those who loved him would do so, even if he failed. He just knew the thought of failing felt too big to bear, and so he carried the weight of perfection quietly. One quiet afternoon, Ilyas sat in Mrs. Gable's class, facing a mathematics test. Despite studying, panic clouded his mind as he stared at the questions. The fear of disappointing his teacher and parents overwhelmed him. Glancing at his friend Leo's paper, he saw the answer to a question he couldn't solve. It was just a heartbeat, a quick peek, unnoticed by anyone. Ilyas wrote down the answer, then another, telling himself it didn't really count. The fear faded, replaced by a colder feeling. He finished the test, handed it in, and walked into the sun, but felt no relief. Instead, he carried a secret, a small stone in his pocket. No one knew, but Ilyas did. On the outside, nothing had changed. On the inside, everything had. A small hinge had turned, opening a door he'd never entered before. Days later, Mrs. Gable returned the tests, smiling warmly as she handed Ilyas his paper. "Wonderful work, Ilyas, I'm so proud of you," she said, and he saw a bright red A at the top. His classmates admired him. His parents celebrated, placing the test on the refrigerator. But the praise felt hollow. He knew the grade wasn't truly his. Every kind word was a reminder of his secret. The joy he'd wanted was replaced by guilt. He had what he thought he wanted: success, praise, no disappointment. But he'd lost the honest pride of real achievement. The lie stood between him and those he loved, an invisible wall. He felt like a fraud, unable to enjoy his success. The praise he craved became a shadow he couldn't escape. He realized he'd cheated not just on a test, but himself. That first act of cheating planted a seed Ilyas couldn't ignore. It was a small decision, made in a moment of panic, but it lingered in his mind long after the test was over. He told himself it was just this once, a harmless shortcut to get through a tough spot. But deep down, he knew something had changed. When faced with another tough assignment, he remembered how easy it was to find the answer. The temptation was stronger this time, and the memory of that first success made it harder to resist. He convinced himself that everyone did it sometimes, that it was just part of surviving school. The fear of failing, and of losing his reputation, pushed him to cheat again. Each time, the anxiety before cheating was matched by a rush of relief when he got away with it. But that relief was always followed by a nagging sense of guilt. Each small act of dishonesty made the next one easier. What once felt unthinkable soon became routine, a habit that crept into more and more parts of his school life. His grades stayed high, and he was praised as one of the brightest students. Teachers and classmates admired his achievements, never suspecting the truth behind his success. But inside, guilt and fear grew, making him feel like a fraud. The praise that once made him proud now felt hollow, a reminder of the secret he carried. He became quieter, avoided eye contact, and steered clear of difficult subjects. The fear of being exposed made him withdraw from friends and teachers alike. The joy of learning faded, replaced by anxiety and loneliness. School, once a place of curiosity and growth, became a source of constant stress. He couldn't share his true feelings with anyone. The fear of judgment and disappointment kept him silent, even as he longed for someone to understand. The secret grew heavier, changing him. It shaped his choices, his friendships, and the way he saw himself. He focused on appearances, forgetting the simple pleasure of learning. Every day became an act, a performance to hide the truth. The small choice he made years ago had led him down a path he never meant to follow. What started as a single misstep had slowly taken over, shaping his future in ways he never expected. Dishonesty had crept in, quietly but surely, changing not just his grades, but the very person he was becoming. Years passed. Ilyas went to university, hoping for a fresh start, but old habits and fears followed him. The pressure to succeed was greater, and shortcuts tempted him. Praise felt empty. He remembered every borrowed idea, every shortcut. He longed for the honest joy he saw in others. Even in his career, he felt like an actor, afraid someone would see through him. The unspoken truth colored everything, leaving him anxious and alone. His success felt fragile, built on a weak foundation. He realized he couldn't be truly happy until he faced his past. He longed for the freedom of honesty, for his inside to match his outside. One autumn day, Ilyas returned to his hometown and parked outside his old school. Watching children play, he remembered the boy he once was, eager, kind, but afraid. The shadow he'd carried began in that very building. He knew he couldn't go inside, but he needed to do something. The weight of his secret felt heavier than ever. He realized he couldn't build a happy future without making peace with his past. So he bought a pen and paper, sat in his car, and began to write. He addressed the letter to Mrs. Gable, not knowing if she'd ever read it. It didn't matter. She represented the time and the truth he needed to face. He was finally ready to speak the truth, even if only on paper. Ilyas wrote about the test, the fear, and the quick glance at his friend's paper. He described the fleeting joy of the A and the guilt that never left. He made no excuses, just told the truth, plainly and honestly. He explained how one small act led to others, and how his success felt empty. He wrote to Mrs. Gable, but also to the boy he'd been, forgiving that frightened child. The letter wasn't for forgiveness from others, but for himself. Its purpose was to bring his secret into the light. After finishing, he mailed the letter at the old school's postbox. As it slipped away, he felt a weight lift from his shoulders. He never knew if Mrs. Gable received it, but it didn't matter. Telling the truth was enough. For the first time in years, Ilyas felt free. The freedom Ilyas found changed him in ways he never expected. It was as if a weight he'd carried for years had finally lifted, allowing him to breathe deeply and see the world with new eyes. Each morning he woke with a sense of possibility, no longer haunted by the fear of not measuring up. He began to trust himself and take pride in honest effort. discovering that real strength came from facing challenges head-on. He learned to value the process, not just the outcome, and to celebrate small victories along the way. Inspired by his own journey, he chose a new path, becoming a teacher. He wanted to offer others the understanding he'd once longed for, to be a guide for those who felt lost or uncertain. He wanted his classroom to be a place where children felt safe to succeed and to fail, a space where mistakes were seen as stepping stones, not setbacks. He believed every child deserved to feel seen and heard. One day, a student named Maya confessed to cheating on a test, her eyes full of fear and shame. She expected anger, maybe even punishment, but instead found something unexpected. Ilyas saw himself in her and felt only empathy. He remembered his own struggles, the times he'd hidden his mistakes and how much he'd needed kindness. He knelt beside her and said, "Thank you for telling me. That took courage." His voice was gentle, his eyes kind, letting her know she was safe. Maya asked, "You're not mad?" Her voice trembled, uncertain if she could trust his kindness. "No," he replied. "We all make mistakes. What matters is what you do next." Maya listened, relief washing over her face. From that day on, she never cheated again, choosing honesty even when it was hard. Ilyas realized the quiet integrity he'd found was now a light he could share with others, a beacon for those searching for their own way. The gentle truth he'd discovered could heal and guide others just as it had healed him. He saw the ripple effect of compassion in every lesson, every conversation. In helping Maya, he finally felt at home, not just in his classroom but within himself. He understood that true belonging comes from embracing both our strengths and our flaws. The small hinge of honesty had opened a door to a life of true freedom, not just for Ilyas but for everyone willing to walk through it.